All right, so to begin using DAX, we have to first import our data into Power BI. So to do so, this time we'll be importing a CSV file. So head on to our Home tab. In our data group, we click on Get Data, and this time CSV. So our CSV file is saved in our Documents folder, and then we say Open. So we go ahead and load our data into Power BI. So the first thing we'll be doing while using DAX is to add what or create a calculated column. With our data loaded, to begin the process of creating calculated column, we have to switch to our data view. All right, now we're on our data view, and you can see the name of our table under Table Tools. So we can as well just change this name because it picked the name of our CSV file. So we could give it a different name, okay, to make it easy while referencing it. So let's call it sales data. So we have successfully renamed it. So to add a calculated column, we'll click on the table, then under column tools, we'll click on new column. So right now, we have our formula bar open to us. So we have to enter the name of this new column. But since it's a calculated column, we want to enter this column to calculate total price, which will multiply quantity by unit price. Okay, so we want to call this column total price. So say we'll enter the formula total price equals sales data, that is referring to the name of the table now, sales data. Then we want to reference the column in question. We'll open square brackets and say quantity, and we close square brackets. Then we want to multiply by unit price, right? So say multiplied by sales data, that is referencing the table, open square brackets to reference the column units price, and we close this. So let's look at the formula now. We want to create a calculated column. The calculated column name will be total price. So how will this column calculate? It multiplies the quantity by the unit price. So to do that, we have to reference the table in question and the column in the table to be calculated in square brackets, then multiplied by the reference of the table as well as the column to be calculated. Okay, so let's press enter. So that is it. It has successfully helped us to calculate this. So basically what it did was to multiply the content of the quantity column by the content of the unit price column. So 10 multiplied by 5 will give us this. So basically, this is what we have successfully done. So the second will be for us to create a measure. How do we create a measure using DAX? So to add a measure, we will stay in this table view or data view. Then head on to Table Tools. Under Calculations, we'll see New Measures. We click on New Measures. Then on the new measure, we have the formula bar. And on the formula bar, we put in the following formula. This formula will be to calculate the total sales. That is, it will sum up what we have in our total price column. Okay, so let's call it total sales equals, and since we want to sum, we'll say sum, and we want to sum from our sales data And in the sales data, this particular column, total price. Then we close this and say enter. So that gives us the measure called total sales. Let us look at other aggregation functions in DAX. A function like average, for instance. So let's add average, right? And to add average, we'll also utilize measures. Now, under our calculations in the measure tool, you see now we have new measures. You can also access measures when you go to your table tools, okay? So let's say we want to add a new measure, and this measure now is average. But to add the measure average, let's add the average on average unit price. So remember, it usually begins with the title of the column or the title of the measure. And the title of this measure is what? Average unit price. Okay? Because we added one before, say total sales. Let's add another one called average unit price. So we'll say average unit price equals. Now, remember what we need to do. We need to put in the function now, average. Okay? You see the function average, and we reference the table name, which is sales data. Okay. After referencing the table name, we want to be able to now reference the column of interest in the table, which is unit price, right? Unit price. Then we now close that reference and close the parenthesis. So look at it very well. The title of the measure, the function, our table reference, then our table column reference. Okay. Then we hit enter. When we hit enter, it now calculates our measure, which is the average unit price. We can go ahead and calculate several measures. So let's add the count measure. The count measure will count the number of orders. Okay, so to do that, we can either stay on our table tools or our measure tools. On the measure tool here, under calculations, we'll say new measure. So the new measure we want to add is a count of orders. So let us now create this measure with the name number of orders, right? Okay, equals the function we are working with is count. Then we want to count from our sales data table. In our sales data table, our column of choice is order ID. Okay, so open square bracket and say order ID. Then we close our square brackets, then close the parentheses. All right, then we hit enter. When we hit enter, you see we have successfully created the measure. While creating our visualizations, we could put the measures in cards to basically show us specific performances. Okay, for instance, let me quickly head on to our report view and then pick our card for visualization. And you could see that we have our measures here. We have this measure, average unit price. We have this other one, number of orders and total sales. So if I check average unit price to be added to this card, you see that we could basically just insert them on a card. If I want to insert the three of them, I go ahead and basically add another card, and then I pick total sales. I pick total sales to be inserted in this card. So let me add another card, and then we take this measure, number of orders. So basically, this can help us in our visualizations as well. In the previous visualization we did in Microsoft Excel, we remember we had to calculate the total profit and added them in a box using links, right? But in Power BI, we can calculate as measures and then insert them in a card, as simple as that. So let's head back to our table view or data view. And we could also have conditional statements or add conditional statements in DAX. So to do that, we will need to create a column for high and low sales, right? And this column, we'll call it sales category. So that means we will not be creating a measure now. We'll be adding a calculated column, isn't it? So let's add a new column. And in this new column, we'll basically put in the formula and a formula bar to just calculate it all at once. So to use the if, we will insert the following formula. So we say the title of our column will be sales category equals, the function now is if, right? We'll say if, we open bracket, then we reference our table. Our table name is sales data, okay? Then in our table, the column of choice is what? Our column of choice is total price. So we'll have it in square brackets, total price. Ensure to write it as you have it, okay? By the time I open this square bracket, you'll see that I have a suggestion of all my columns here. So if I want to avoid errors or spelling errors, I could just click to select, okay? So my column of choice is total price. Then I close the square bracket, okay? So after that, I need to say, put in the condition now. If the total price column in sales data does what? If it's greater than 50, all right, if our total price is greater than 50, so what happens? We'll say comma, then in quotes, let's say it is high, then close quote. If not, let's say it is low, okay? Then we close this. What is next is that we now close our parentheses. So let's look at the formula again. We created a calculated column named sales category, and we want to use a condition here and say, if our total price is greater than 50, let it say high sales. If not, let's say low sales. So that is why we reference our table. Our table is sales data. Then we reference the column in our sales data table, which is total price, okay? Before we went ahead to insert the statements. As this is done, we hit enter to have our calculated column. And now our calculated column is here, a sales category, and you see where the unit price or total price is 50, it says low. Where it's greater than 50, it says high, okay?